Hey, what's going on guys? This is Jake at That Fit Friend and welcome to Cut in Half. This is a new series on the channel where I'm gonna be cutting some of the market's best workout shoes in half. Yes, I am spending my own money to buy these shoes, training them, review them, and basically cut them in half and see what's deeper inside of the shoe. As shoes continue to evolve, I always like to nerd out on the materials and the specs of the shoe and just get a better look as to what's really going on in the shoes that we are training in. So let's go ahead and cut this Nike Metcon 9 in half and so let's take a deeper look into the Nike Metcon 9. And now, just to put it out there, this has been my least favorite Metcon model to date. I feel like Nike skimped out on the construction of the shoe. I don't think it's a very well-built shoe. And to increase the price point for what you get for this model, I feel like there are much stronger options on the market, and I have a best cross training and best CrossFit shoe video linked down below. So there are a lot of great options there if you're like, which options are better than this model? So looking at the internal part of the shoe, you can see we have the dual density foam midsole that runs throughout. It gets obviously a little bit thinner up here in the forefoot, and then it gets thicker through the midfoot and back here in the heel. Now, what was interesting in this shoe for me was the Hyperlift Plate. So in the 7 and 8, it had that orange Hyperlift Plate that went across the heel entirely. And so you could see that through the heel of the shoe. So more than likely, and while I didn't cut those shoes open, likely that TPU went all the way through the heel. In this model, that is not the case, and this actually really took me by surprise. So when you look at the lateral part of the shoe, you see the plate out here, and you would think that this goes all the way across because that is the language on their product page. It's to give you stability and whatnot, to give you additional help when lifting and trying to stabilize. But when looking at this plate itself and the construction, what's interesting is that it only wraps the outside of the shoe. So I actually cut this back heel here to see how far that plate went in, and it only cups the ends of the heel on the lateral and medial side and all the way on the back of the shoe. Now, I'm gonna be honest, from a mechanic standpoint, nobody is putting that much weight into that far back into the heel when they are lifting and training. So I don't really understand this functionality of this plate. And truthfully, I feel like it just then takes away from the versatility of the shoe, and it doesn't really add that much to the overall stability of the heel itself. Because if it's only wrapping around this part of the heel and you're not really using it, it just seems like it gets in the way for running and other movements like jumping and whatnot. So I thought that was really interesting, and I'm curious in the comments below, let me know if you thought this plate went all the way across in your Nike Metcon 9's heel. I'm curious because with the language on the page, they don't say obviously it goes all the way across, but it does say Hyperlift Plate, and when you hear plate, I assume like a flatter surface and material that goes through the entirety of the shoe, but that is not the case. As you can see, it like kind of concaves here and only really cups the back and the sides of the heel. Another thing that I really found interesting with the Nike Metcon 9 is this midfoot construction and the break of this rope guard. So something that bothered me with this model is how it kind of collapses on the medial arch or like the medial midfoot. And I don't know if other folks have felt this too, but like with heavy unilateral work, I felt like the shoe kind of collapsed inward. And I think that's because with this rope guard here, it's just not as rigid as the outsole material. And really cutting it open and seeing, you can kind of see that it's not as thick, it's not as dense as this black rubber outsole on the forefoot and heel. And so if I had to guess, that's why the shoe kind of has that collapsed feel. I know that's not gonna necessarily impact everybody's lifting and mechanics, but I definitely noticed it, and I've talked to other lifters who have felt that too. Especially when you compare it to like a Metcon 7, 6, 4, etc. This shoe, I think, feels the worst regarding stability, but that is obviously comparing it, relatively speaking, to the other Metcon models that I personally love. Looking at the upper construction in this shoe, we have a padded mesh tongue that's pretty standard. We also have this textile and haptic overlay upper. This upper material is layered, so that's also why you don't get as much breathability in this shoe as well. It has 2 layers here. Neither of them are really that breathable. They're both pretty heavy in nature. And then you also have that tongue gusset. The gusset of the shoe is basically this material here that kind of keeps that tongue locked down from sliding as much. But overall, I think those are the big parts of the Metcon 9 that really took me by surprise, and obviously the biggest part that took me by surprise was this heel back here. Let me know in the comments below, did you think this heel went all the way across and stabilized? Because honestly, like looking at the density of where the heel is in the forefoot and the midfoot, they're all pretty dang consistent. And then obviously back here with the TPU, they're not because there's a plate in there, but If this is only giving you stability on the very, very back of the heel, like nobody's putting that much weight into that part of their heel when they're squatting and lifting. It just seems like a null point. And it kind of seems like Nike skimped out on this material despite the shoe having a higher price point, which is really interesting. All right, guys, hopefully this video helped shed some light as to what you're really getting with the Nike Metcon 9 when you are paying for their more premium price point. I'm curious, what do you think of this model? Do you think Nike kind of skimped out and went a little bit of the cheap route on the shoe despite having a higher price point? Or do you think it's worth it based off of the construction, the materials used? Let me know in the comments below, and obviously definitely check out my full Nike Metcon 9 review. That is also linked down below. But if you have any questions on this model or this video, drop a comment down below or reach out to me personally, whichever you prefer. And as always, y'all, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next one.